Good. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to another class of Jesus Around the World. Today I was invited by Pastor John to continue sharing about different places and church and Jesus and how the gospel work in different places. And of course, for me, is to talk about Cuba and what that means in our context and in my culture. But welcome also if you are connecting with us online through Facebook. I would love to see in the comments you are watching. And if you have any question when I'm sharing about Cuba and my experience, you are welcome to ask. And of course, you here in person. I want to have more a conversation about this interesting thing. Okay, welcome, coming back. Okay, well, when we're talking about Cuba, I need to say it's interesting for us when we are in a different country to hear a lot of things about Cuba, and many of those are true, or another are myths, are not real. It's a lot of information outside about Cuba, but especially about church and what that really means in Cuba and be Christian in Cuba in our context is really different than many other places I'm being. And probably the main reason is because the political situation in Cuba and the information, the internet, uh, a lot of uh, a lot of things happen in Cuba when we think about church. Because we cannot really see Cuba like North Korea, for example, when it's not allowed at all. But same time, it's a communist country. But what can is allowed or not is the things we come tonight to talk a little bit. First, I born in a Methodist church in Cuba. That was part of my entire life growing that. But I have a great experience of knowing a lot of leaders from other denominations and be part of ministries, especially one ministry. The name is Tosha War, and that ministry is from here, from United States, but is working in Cuba for around 15 years. And especially that ministry work with youth, with students, teenagers, but from different denominations, evangelical denominations, but from several of those. And they bring them together to work, and we train the leaders to work with those peoples and doing summer camps and a lot of things with that people. But that gave me the experience of having that time of knowing more about others and not just the context of the Methodist Church, because that was my church, but working with 17 denominations give me some kind of idea how is church in general in Cuba. First, we need to put it together what is the most important religion in Cuba. The most important, by numbers, the most part of the population in Cuba, around the 60% population, they identify themselves like a Catholic church, but that really is not that true. It's not that big, huge number. A lot of them coming from, family, a Catholic family. They grew up in that culture, and they identified them like a believer in something. But it's not like a Latin America. It's not in the same way. The Catholic Church is not so strong in Cuba. People be part of that and be really involved and commit to the church like it is in many other Latin American countries. It's not the same. Yes, it's a big organization. Yes, it's a huge thing. Yes. But then we need to think in two different times in Cuba. First time is before 1959, before the revolution, and after the revolution. Before was a lot of old denominations in Cuba, because they coming from United States. A lot of missionaries coming from United States, and they was their preaching, and the Methodist wasn't that way. And the Baptist Church, Pentecost, all those denominations, they went to Cuba before the revolution, and they have temples and buildings and schools and hospitals, a lot of things, probably like here. But the difference is when revolution started in 1959, the government recognized those they call all denominations. Those groups was official churches. But everything else after 1959, any other denomination was not present in the country in that moment. Any other group start, any other non-denomination ministry or something like that is not allowed for the government. It's not support and is considered illegal. For that reason, exist, yes, a lot of them, but they don't have a legal status in Cuba. They are not an organization. They are not church for the government. How they do it? Well, they have houses. Just for example, I offer my house to have a small group in my house, and they can register that into the government like a small group class or a small group meeting in my house. But never a church, never an organization, never something official for good and bad. You know, organization have a legal status. You have a bank account. You have the way to how you do your finances. Like here, you have rules, but you can have a property in your name. You know, you can have that legal procedure. But this is not what happened really in Cuba. It's not what happened with those groups when they are not allowed to really worship. They need to be part of the all denominations. They need to be part of that. That is basically the context of the evangelical church. But when we're talking about numbers, the 5% of the population in Cuba is evangelical, is coming from church. 60% Catholic, 5% only evangelical church. What happened with the rest of the people? Yes, we have probably a 30% rest of the population don't believe in anything, but a huge number, but very hard to register, is a religion. It's a combination of belief. Remember, Cuba, we don't have the huge influence for indigenous or this huge culture like Latin America. In Cuba, our community was very small, and when Spain came, they killed all of them and disappear. They bring them African slave to Cuba to work. Basically, the Cubans, this is why physically we are different than Latin America, is because we are the mix between Spain and Africa. We don't have that roots like Latin America. And with that, coming also the African religion is coming with those slaves to Cuba. And that religion is called Yoruba religion. It's from the west of Africa. And that Yoruba is very strong. It's very strong religion. And that was very, very strong in Cuba for that time. And always was the fight between Yorubas and Catholic Church from Spain. You know, it's like a both fighting all the time between both. From that mix, from Yoruba and Roman Catholic Church, was created another extra thing. The belief of one side and another side that was mixed, and was created a new religion called Santeria. La Santeria in Cuba is something specific from Cuba because it's unique. It's not totally Yoruba like in Africa. It's something mixing with the Catholic Church. Uh, that was growing and growing for years. Today, those are the three main groups in Cuba. Catholic Church represent a religion organization with legal status. Something is known like the kind of groups support the government because they want to be okay with the government, to the government allow them to do things. The Pope went there, and a lot of things, they have good relationships. Nothing happened between both. Whatever the government say is okay for the Catholic Church. Those are a huge group. The second group is the evangelical church, represent only like 5% of the population, and the total population is 11 million. The three main denomination is in first place Assembly of God, second place Pentecost, Baptist, and third place Methodist Church. In that context, coming the third group, the Santeria. That group is a totally different religion. They have Los Orichas. Los Orichas is the group of gods. They worship a lot of gods. And the way they are become to be part of that religion is by, how you say, initiation? Initiation. Yes, thank you. It's not just coming and be part of us. It's a cult. It's be part of that. It's a process to be part of that. They have days to celebrate each god and a lot of things. And the way they celebrate their gods is through sacrifice. They do it through small things like just fruits or alcohol, tobacco, or in many cases using animal sacrifice. Cuba is one of the places in the world they don't have any law for animal protection. Doesn't exist in Cuba. Any law to protect animals. For that reason, it's not a problem for them to use animals for sacrifice to their gods. And that is the stronger religion in Cuba right now. Why, when I say stronger, it's not about numbers. Because 60% is Catholic, but they are not really part of the Catholic Church. This is just a tradition, and they are part of those families. They are not, it's not a big number really of people committed to be part of that, to really participate. But in the Christianity and Santeria, both are the two extremes. Both groups are one, of course, with belief totally different than the other group.
And with Santeria, I'm sorry, are they taking like the Catholic saints and worshiping them?
No, they are taking, what they are taking for the Catholic Church is more about organization, is more about administration, some things, but the most part of their worship and cult is more Yoruba African religion. But some levels of the Santeria, because it's unique in Cuba, some priests, they need to reach some specific level inside of that, and they need to travel to Cuba to get that level. Cuba is one of the big places for those kind of religion around the world. But those groups are very strong. What is the difference? The difference is the government. The most part of the government leadership in Cuba, they are part of the Santeria and Yoruba religion. Some places in Cuba, some national important places in Cuba, they're owned by the government. Uh, they are specific set up for their sacrifice and a lot of things. Uh, it's totally open, it's totally okay. The government allowed that on national television. Remember, everything in Cuba is owned by the government. News, television, radio, paper news, everything is owned by the government. That means they control the information. They allow what they want, and they filter everything. It's only one program on the national television is live, and that is the national news. But the rest is pre-recorded and is checked by the government before be live, going in air. On that context, just see like a government is trying to, they open doors for the Santeria. They can do whatever they want. They are national television. They are allowed to do many things. And Christian church is not, is allowed in some ways, but no support. They give you some flexibility, but they will try to do whatever is necessary to close doors for the Christian church. For that reason, it's hard to build anything, for have temples or renovations or properties or celebrations. The Santeria group, they request have a huge celebration in the main outside park. They say, okay, Christian church want to do a service, and they say no. You know, and that is the way everything happen inside Cuba. For Santeria, people pay a lot of money, because be part of that is a long process, but you need to pay a lot. Because those people, they wear just entire white, and they use a lot of necklace and with colors and a lot of means a lot of things in their religion. I really don't know, but when you see one of them, when the levels of the rank inside of them is identified for how many necklaces they have. Of course, each one is different. It means something different. But that is a big deal in Cuba. That is a big thing in Cuba. On that context, of course, being Christian is difficult. It's difficult. Now it's a little more allowed. For years and years, if you were Christian, they don't allow you to be in any government job. They don't allow you to have any kind of relationship with any person is military. For example, my dad, he's a retired now, but he's a retired military, and he was not allowed to be in my birthday celebration because we are Christian. And all those happen, all those things happen all the time. After Fidel Castro died, many things changed. It's true. Not everything is bad. Many things changed, and many new open was open, and especially I always say they make one big mistake. Government try to give information to people. And when you try to give information, that is a bad thing for them. Because you can control more easy people if they don't know anything. But when you open internet, when you open information, access to the information, people start thinking different. People start seeing the war. People start seeing around us how difficult really is and how many lies government is saying. And that changed many things. In all that political context, come in the church. Because it's difficult, because it's hard, because it's very complicated to just life in general. Everything in Cuba worked because of a black market. Everything. Life is difficult. Jobs are difficult. Everything is so difficult. And because the life is difficult, the faith is strong. The, the Christian church in Cuba is very strong. Because we learn how to live by faith. Because we don't have any hope in the government or in any other change. We know the only way we can survive is by God. And that is literally our life every single day. How is the church in Cuba? Well, church in Cuba is we don't have anything, but we live in the way like we have everything. That means people, the most part of them, they are very committed. Is people want to always serve. Is people always want to do things. The worship life in Cuba is very busy. For example, in my church, in the church I grew up, we have service, just worship service. Every Tuesday night, we have a prayer service. But something you need to understand is Hispanic service, just the short Spanish service will be 2 hours. You know when it start, never when finish. Here we try to be mindful with time, but in our countries it's not. You know, usually they start around 8 p.m. And normally every service will be finished around 10, 10:30. You're talking with some brothers and sisters. You're going home probably 11. Tuesday night. On Thursday night, we have Bible study worship service, 2 more hours. Saturday morning, we have fast and prayer service in the morning, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. And we have a 9 service, 8 p.m. to 10, Saturday too. On Sunday, we have 4 service. We have Sunday school, 8:30. We have first service, 11 a.m., second service, 2 p.m., and fourth service, 8 p.m. In the midst of that, every day is service. That means on the week, Tuesdays and Thursday, we have fast and prayer the whole morning for people don't work. And for those even work, we have a prayer time 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. every single day of the year. Church is always open 5 a.m. and people is working to welcome to go. Any of us have cars, have a bicycle is a big deal, but people don't care about that. I was living pretty close to the church. I walk 30 minutes for every service between my house and my church. Was 30 minutes walking, but I was close. Other people was more far than me. But of course, I was part of the leadership. That means you need to come for practice too. And I was part of the music ministry, part of the youth, leader of the youth, and all of that is practice, 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 meetings, meetings, meetings. But of course, I study and I work too. But it's normal for people. Schools in Cuba, all of them, they use uniforms. We just put the uniforms, everybody with uniform, ready to work, 5 a.m. praying in the service, in a church. After church, go to work or go to school. Because the church pray a lot, and the church work a lot, uh, a lot of great things happen. Uh, Faith is very strong. Faith is very strong, and is we don't know another way to live. uh, for that reason, I always, not always, but usually 100 miles per hour, I need to stop myself because for me it was normal to be part of a whole day doing things and my whole life. But that is usually the church in Cuba. But it's also the kind of church which experience a lot of supernatural things. Why? Because there's a big fight with the Santeria. And when I'm talking about heavy thing, is because you can find on the streets people in their house for Santeria, they offer consultation and they offer miracles and many things happen. And people pay for that. And you can find easily in every neighborhood a long line of people waiting for someone in their house. When you see the house entirely closed, with windows and everything closed, and a long line outside, everybody knows what is. And people come because they want to know the future, or they want to know what is going to happen, or they want to pay for some kind of work to kill someone, or they want to pay for some kind of specific work to recover their marriage. It's a lot of heavy things happening over there, and it's normal for people. When I was missionary, one of the first places I went was 15, almost 16 years old. In that town was no church around that place at all. None. And that was a reason for us going there. But when my first week, I discovered it's one temple in one place. Why is closed? Why you don't have a church here, but it's a temple closed? And people say, no, it's not a church. It's a satanic temple. And for me in that moment, say, nah, that is just for movies. I say, no, it's real. And I went there. And it's real. They worship the devil, and they have their songs, they have their books with a lot of things they read like a Bible, and everybody have their schedule. They go 3 times to worship the devil in the temple every week. And for me, that was, what is this? And of course, the leader, I don't know how they call that person, but the leader of that place, he came to me and say, well, someone told me you're trying to do a church here, right? Remember, 16 years old. Okay, yes, I'm trying to. And he say, well, you do whatever you want. My advice, even don't try. Many try, and they can. We are more powerful than you. That was the first week, okay? And all of that changed in me, say, that is another level. And he was very confident and say, we are more powerful than you, we cannot do a church here. But I coming for a church, pray a lot. I coming for a church, work a lot. I was not afraid of that. Say, okay, we'll see. And we keep working, and many things happen, and it's not about me. But God have a purpose to that place, and today is a church right there. But years later, I went to that place, visit again. Other people came after me, I just started the place. Other people came and continued the church and built a temple, and they have a church, a Methodist church over there in that place. My surprise was I coming to visit that church. The pastor in that moment invited me to come back to that place. And when I come into a worship service in that place, a person received me on the entrance of the new church, was the leader of that Sept temple. And he told me, "Do you remember me?" Of course I remember you. And he said, "Well, I am thankful with God that he proved me he is more powerful than us." He was touched by God and he was transformed. It was not in my ministry, it was with another person, but that is not the important part. The important part, God changed everything there. That is the reality of church in Cuba. It's fighting all day long. It's fighting against darkness. It's daily things happening around us. A lot of people around us. A lot of craziness around us. Is a huge need around physicals and food. Now with COVID, it's even worse. Everything is very difficult. But the point is, I always say that is the best we can have because that teach us how to depend on God. And yes, we want a better country, of course. We want to our family have better opportunities, of course. But at the same time, we are thankful to because that kind of problems show us how to depend on God and live by faith and be part of that. But this is what really means to be Christian in Cuba. It's not easy at all. It's very hard. It's very complicated. Is whatever you want to do here, any kind of events you want to do here, any kind of activity, any kind of things you want to do, if you think you have any problems to put something together or to buy what you need or to prepare what you need, okay, multiply that for 20 times in Cuba. Because the thing in Cuba is you don't have absolutely nothing. From the most basic to the most complicated thing, nothing. Absolutely everything, everything. We was doing a lot of camps, yes, but by faith, we never have the security to find the transportation, to find the, when you finally get the truck and do the trip, you will not find the diesel to put in the car. When you find that, the driver call you, they don't have a tire for the truck. It's every single detail in life. But that shows you the way to how depend on God, and this is the way we do it in Cuba. Every single day, the government put it more difficult how to be Christian. Every single day is more complicated, and church need to survive. Every single day, they are closing places. Of course, they allow, after 1959, the original temples, but they take everything else. They took schools, buildings, everything Methodist Church have, they take it. And they put it that to their own schools or whatever they decide with those buildings. And it's just, they want it. That's it. It's nothing we can do with that. But it is what it is. How the Methodist Church is in Cuba? A little different than here. Because Methodist Church several years ago separated from the United Methodist Church. We are still Methodists, yes. Have a good relationship between both countries, yes. But it's not part of the United Methodist Church. And when I talked to Pastor John about those details, he said, well, that is very close to the Methodist Church on the 1990s here, on the 1980s here. For me, it looks like a Methodist Church in Cuba, when they separate from the United, they stay in that in, in that way. And the United Methodist Church was changing during the years, several things, but Cuba stayed in the same way. Um, but the reality is some things are different. Organization-wise, theology is the same. All of that is the same. But it's more, for example, a little different thing over there is the departments. It's very strong in Cuba, will be exist not only the children's, they will exist a very organized teenagers organization, 11 to 15 years old. And they have that in every level. They have that, a group of teenagers who is leading the teenagers on the district and on the conference level and national level. And they have huge camp for the whole teenagers in entire Cuba. The same with youth, with young adults, with men and women. And organization is something work very good. Like here, the women organization work here good, but that work in Cuba with every age. And it's a very strong thing that worked perfectly. My wife, she was one of the national leader of the teenagers, and my wife was also the creator of the official magazine for youth. In my side, I was part of the national team for youth, and I was the director and editor for the official magazine for the Methodist Church in Cuba. That was our way to serve over there. But after that, organization-wise, everything is the same. Bishop and everything. What is the bad thing? Because not always everything is good. One of the worst thing we have in Cuba with a Christian church is the leaders we have. And let me explain that. The problem is the leadership we have today, they born after 1959. That means all of us, we born under the revolution. This is the only thing we know, nothing else. And something terrible with the communists is that they are too strong in how from the schools levels and everything, schools is mandatory, okay? You can go to jail if you're not send your kid to a school. And doesn't exist that like a home school, that doesn't exist. You need to send your kids or you're going to jail. And they put it in our brains just so deeply everything to the communists. The leaders on the church, because it's only allowed and legal those old denominations, Pentecost, Methodist, Baptist Church, Nazarene, those big, sometimes, not all of them, but the most part of those leaders, they try to lead those denominations in the same way the government lead everything in the country. That is the big difference between Methodist Church in Cuba and here. Because when here we are connected, many things depends on from the conference. We have good connections, but church, local church, have some areas of freedom, to decide many things. Now in Cuba. Cuba, everything's coming from the office of the bishop, everything, including even the Sunday school classes. Everything. Nothing can move, nothing can happen if the bishop don't say yes. Nothing. And that is bad many times. that create problems many times, because then the bishop cannot fix everything. I cannot do everything, and many things don't happen in the way need to happen, because need to someone hundred of miles from you say yes or no. uh, this is why never nothing is perfect. Of course not. We have good thing in Cuba. We have bad thing in Cuba. Of course, like here, because this is who we are. We are human, and nothing always is perfect. uh, they need to learn a lot. Um, for me, I will be honest. When I come to United States, and I was trying to be part of the Methodist Church here in the United States, I was nervous. Uh, I want to know what is the Methodist Church in the United States first. Uh, I'm thankful for the way it is, even it's not perfect, and a lot of things need to change. Uh, but like organization-wise, denomination-wise, I like more the ways here than how it's there. Uh, but that is one of the bad things we have, but the good thing is faith, believing, relationship with God, trusting in God, miracles, all of that happen every single day. Uh, I was I was only 10 years old um, when I see my mom walk. After the doctor say that will be impossible, and she was in a wheelchair chair, and uh, with a huge problem in the back, and doctor say never more, and she pray, God decides something different, and we pray for her, we take her hand, and she walk. And next day, we went to the doctor, and everything was perfect. That is every single day in Cuba. That is the normal way. Uh, Usually, you will not see anybody in Cuba surprised for a miracle or surprised for something like that. It's normal for us. It's normal to blinds. Just put your hands on blinds, and they will see. And uh, that is a normal way happen. No everywhere? No, of course not. No everybody is in that way? Of course not. But the majority of church is living in that way. Believe in God, trusting in God, but being real in God, connecting real with God. Uh, for that reason, the rest of just religion is not important for some people because they know the God they are serving, and that is the important part. But well, I can be talking a whole week about Cuba. Just let me open a little bit for questions because it's a lot of information. But I just want to give you some kind of time to, if you're watching online and you want to have any question, just put it in the comments, please. I will be reading those comments too. But any question, please.
We were talking about how the organization is somewhat run like the government in a communist fashion. You were also talking about how one of the good things is that every group, every age group has a strong organization in and of itself that where people are encouraged to serve in very tangible ways. Is that kind of an assigned thing where, like, say you have a group of 11 to 15-year-olds, does the bishop, does the power behind the church decide, okay, this child is going to be a missionary, this child is going to write the magazine, or do people serve in the way that they feel led?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Well, everything is organized in that way from the main office, of course. And it's on paper, it's in discipline, say, okay, how many people will be leading this and this and this, and the organization, how it's created. And each organization, we have a huge camp called Canaan Camp. and they have a huge temple for almost 3,000 people seated. This is the main place in Cuba when the Methodist Church do conference and everything. Well, every organization, they have their national conference, and they elect their people, and of course, that is elected by people, it's by vote, and it's elected by people who is leading them, and who is serve them. The only person, the only organization is the teenagers, is the only organization, they have the whole leading group is teenagers, but the main person is an adult, is the only one. But the rest used to the others is between us, and put it by the discipline, they are serving for third time, and they need to be reelected again, and those kind of things. But the rest of calling is more by call, your local pastor, similar process than here. A local pastor see what's your call, what you can do. Let me train you in that area, that specific area. Let me send you here or here. The big blessing, I always say, the big blessing, one day I will, this time he was here in the United States, but because the situation here with COVID was impossible he came. But I hope in the near future he can come. The main pastor was a big influence on my life. He is like my father in ministry, and he's a DS in Cuba. And that person, he was my pastor for several years, but in that time. And he was an important part of my ministry because he was that person recognizing in us that call and training us in a very specific way. He training us from that age because he know we will be a pastor. From that generation, I was counting the other day, and from that generation, he was brave because he was preparing teenagers. We was 15, 12. One in my group was like a 13 years old. He was preparing all of us in very specific way, very hard. But he was a great leader, and he was the first in everything. If we come in 5 a.m., he come in 4:30. He will be the first person for everything. He was our example for everything. But he put us to preach a lot on the main service. But he wasn't the first pew. And he was all the time. When the sermon finished, he will come to you and say, give me a few minutes in my office. And that will mean he will go through your sermons and will say, good, grown, good, change this, you use this, but not this, and and he helped us, training us in everything. But from that generation, it's almost 10 to 12 pastors today. In Cuba and 3 here, and the person take my place in Louisville when I come into Madisonville was the last one of that generation, was not pastor. He was the last one, and I come into Louisville, and he was missionary together with me. He came to my church, he was one of my leaders, and when I come to here, he take my place, and finally was the last pastor, and was licensed last year in the Methodist Church. They was intentionally, but that don't coming from the office. That is a local vision for pastors, and some are better than others, of course, to do that job. But the good thing, because it's very organized, people and leaders have the opportunity to serve in different levels, and the potential of many people show up because they are doing things. They are working in many things, and it's more easy to be trained. One of the bad things we have is Methodist Church have a seminary, but the youth, we don't have the opportunity like here to to say, like a Pastor John Lolita, with that age, to say, I want to go through seminary, be trained to be pastor. In Cuba, it's impossible. One of my younger brother, he will be pastor one day. He have an amazing call. Uh, I see myself on him so much. Right now he's 17 years old. He's in Cuba. But he has two missions, and he's studying medicine, doing a lot of things. But he's studying because he needs to study something, but he really wants to go to seminary because it's his goal. But we don't have that in Cuba. In Cuba, the seminary is, because it's a very limited number, a small place, it's only for pastors. After you are a pastor, after you become to be pastor, but in Cuba also is a lot of more categories than here, a lot of more. You have 2 years of just probatory time, the 2 first years, and then you go to the next category, to the next, to the next, to the next. Become to be a reverend, that is probably 10 to 12 years. Superintendent, 15 to 20 years. But the thing is, after you have your first 2 years probatory, is then you can start a seminary. I think it's a bad thing because you are a full-time pastor, studying at the same time, and it's very hard. It's better if they have the opportunity before, and the training, and the way to do it like here, but it's not been possible so far, but we hope one day. Something else? It's not working today, right, Brandon?
Mhm.
It's working?
Mhm.
Okay, no, but because my phone is stuck, but internet, probably the weather, just decide to. It's fine. Probably the government just want to. My government. Cuban government don't want I talk to. uh, People joke with that all the time in Cuba. When something bad happens, it's because of government. Okay, anything else? Well, how is the situation now, and how we can pray for that? For first time ever, people are just tired about everything on the government. People is just tired of that generation, and the new generation decide to do something. But the new generation have also internet access, and they can limit what is in the national television, but not in social media. For that reason, people decide to do things, uh, and it's very easy how the government put in jail very quick, and how do a lot of bad things. But now they are in social media. People is streaming live every single scene with the police and many bad things. Until last July 11, because July 11 was a day, for first time in the story, people went to the streets to protest. But I'm talking about the whole country. Was in every city. Was a national thing. And that was huge, because that never happened before. They tried to say whatever they want, but that day people woke up. And that day people are just tired of everything. Because yes, in that moment in Cuba, until July 11, they was putting electricity 2 hours a day. And was not food. And they decide, because they won, they decide to don't allow American dollar. And they create their own debit cards. That is a new thing. Cuba never used card before. They create their own debit cards when you can deposit the dollars and use those cards to buy food on those special stores. Okay, what happened with the 60+% of the population don't have dollars or family in another country? They don't have that car, and they don't have a place to buy the food in the only place they have food. All of that combined create that movement in July 11. After July 11, of course, they on the 12th, next day, and 13 and 14, they was just looking. The government was looking on camera. Whatever person was on camera, they went to their houses and take it to the jail. But people continue, and people continue. All that political situation is being crazy still. And they now, the last week, create a new law, because it's easy to just create a law. They put in paper whatever they want, they sign it, and it is. They don't have Congress, they don't have anything, they just sign it. And the new law say you can be on trial, you can go to jail up to 10 years in jail if you put something against the government, even in social media. That means now it's in the law. You need to be very careful even what you put it on Facebook, because that is proof enough. All of that coming with COVID, and very bad. People is dying, hundreds and hundreds, but they control the numbers. They control it. They just open cemeteries and just open holes in the field to bury people, because it's hundreds of people dying. That means your family can go to the hospital in a bad condition, and probably you never know, you can receive a call in 1 week to say, die, your family died. Where is? You never know. Because there's so many dying, they just bury with others, and they don't keep record of that. And probably you will never find the family, or you never find what happened. COVID is still very bad. And of course, if food was bad enough before before COVID, with quarantine, it's even worse. You cannot have food. All of that is creating a chaos. Everything is terrible. And that is the situation today. What we can do? Pray. The same church learn how to pray and be strong. They are still strong. I was praying this morning with another brother, he's a Methodist pastor in Cuba, and he was praying with me by phone, but from the hospital in a very bad condition. And for me, it's hard, yes. It's hard to separate feelings, yes. It's hard to do my normal work knowing my people is dying, yes. It's hard. But I tell my brother this morning something I remember myself every single day. This is a time to practice what we preach. We preach faith. We preach God is in control. This is a time to practice that. And it's the only thing we can do. Trust in Him. And I want to invite you to pray for that. To pray for the situation, for the people, to pray for a difficult moment in Cuba life. It's just a shame, a beautiful country with so many good things. It's so good we don't have even endangered animals. It's a paradise. They just broke our beautiful country. uh, and we hope to have one day something different there. Uh, but one day COVID will be finished, and I will travel with a mission trip to Cuba, and it's a beautiful place to go. It's a beautiful place to visit. It's not violence like another place. It's a very safe place to go. It's a beautiful, and it's an amazing experience to experience something in church different. Uh, but right now the situation is a chaos. It's bad. It's very bad. Just we don't have more time. It's 30, but I want to invite you to pray, please, for that. And when you're praying in your daily devotionals, please remember Cuba and remember uh, what is happening over there, and uh, only God can do something about it. Any other last question? Any of you want to finish praying and praying for Cuba? Someone? Okay.
Dear Lord, thank you for being with us this evening in class, letting us learn so much about such a beautiful place where our friends, pastors are from. Dear Lord, please be with the people there. Please be with those that are sick in the hospitals and those that can't be in a hospital. Please protect them from this virus. Heal their bodies, and more importantly, Lord, fortify their spirits. Let them lean into you and know that whatever happens in this world, whatever happens now is but just a moment, just a blip in time of your eternity, Lord. Help us always remember our brothers and sisters in other places. Let us lift them up and pray with them, because whenever we pray, we are heard, and your will be done. In Jesus' holy and precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully next week, Pastor John will come back to teach about another country. But thank you so much, all of you, to attend today, and for your prayers. Thank you, Shannon, and uh, thank you. God bless you.